In this tutorial session, we'll look at 2026 April tutorial sheet, and our focus will be on question 19. So this question was: provide starting materials in the boxes below to complete the following reactions. So we have a box for the first one. Then our reagent to be given is phenyl bonded to magnesium with bromine there. Then the next reagent is hydrogen chloride with water. Then it was given this, the product we have on this side. Alright, so this question we have, if we try to see the reaction, it's actually the Grignard reaction. So the reagent we have there, it is a Grignard reagent because we have a group which is a phenyl bonded to a magnesium bromide. A phenyl is just this benzene ring, then bonded to this magnesium bromide. So let's look at the first question which we have here. So how can we handle the first question? So what we need to ask ourselves is what is formed for us to be able to predict what would be the reactant. So if we check in this case, for a Grignard reagent, we say that if you have a reagent like this reagent, this Grignard, which is a metal, which is magnesium bonded to a halogen. This group, it actually leaves. Then once it leaves, initially in the reagent side, you must have something which will have a carbonyl. So we must have a carbonyl group, whether a ketone or it could be an aldehyde. Then this ketone group, once it undergoes a reaction, then in the product we are going to form an alcohol. No wonder in this reaction we are seeing that what we are forming has an alcohol group. So we need to know that it is coming from a carbonyl group, and this carbonyl group could be in form of maybe an aldehyde or a ketone. So that is what we need to take note. Alright, so let's look at this first question. So the first question, we're just determining the starting material. You're not performing any reaction mechanism in this case, so it's just to predict. So we have that we have the product there, which is a phenyl. So we can see that this phenyl is actually this ring here. The phenyl in this reagent is actually this ring. Then this ring has been bonded to this CH or H. So in this case, we can see that this phenyl has reacted with a certain reagent which was this side, and because we can see that the attached group just have CH2, meaning that this group which was here just had one carbon. So it just had one carbon like that. And remember that it has just two hydrogen, and we said that since this is a Grignard reagent, that one, meaning that what we need to have on the reagent side must have a carbonyl. So we can have a carbonyl there, carbon bonded to an oxygen like that. Then we need to ask ourselves how many hydrogen is this phenyl group attached to. So except for that of an alcohol, because an alcohol group is coming from this carbonyl group. So we need to count now the carbons we have. So we have, the hydrogen we have, except for the hydrogen of an alcohol. So we can see that we have 2 hydrogen there. So meaning that this group was attached to 2 hydrogen like that. So by doing so, we've predicted, or we've provided rather, the starting material. So this was the starting material. Then it had to undergo what is known as a Grignard reaction, whereby it was reacted with a Grignard reagent. Then it had to form that product. Alright, so if we're good on the first part, let's look at the next part. Now, next part is quite interesting here. So we have a phenyl group with a Grignard. Then the product we are having are 2 phenyl group with an alcohol on top. Now let's see what to start with as the starting material. So here, this phenyl group with a bromine, let's take it as it is this phenyl. Okay, let's take it as it is this phenyl. Then this part with a carbonyl, we are going to take it as it is the one which came from the starting material, because this phenyl here is actually this group this side. Then we are going to take this part to be a part which came from the starting material. So we have the part which is this. Okay, so we have a phenyl group like that. Okay, we have the phenyl group like that. So this phenyl group is this group. Then we've said this other phenyl group is the one which has a Grignard there. So this is our starting material. So it has how many carbons, how many hydrogen rather. So you can just see that it just have 1 hydrogen there. So this was the group which reacted, and this phenyl must be bonded to a certain carbonyl group. So we must add a carbonyl group at one point there, carbon. Okay. Then with a double bond bonded to oxygen, then we can see that it just had 1 hydrogen there. So that hydrogen is what we are going to put, is what we're going to bond with carbon this side. Alright, so this was the starting material for the second reaction for us to form this product. Now let's look at the third one. So the third one is even more interesting because this one has 2 phenyl groups. Okay, so you must know that one of this phenyl came from the phenyl in this Grignard reagent. So let's take the bottom part to be the one which came from the phenyl in this reagent. Then we are going to take this part and see how many carbons are there. So can we see that there is no hydrogen rather here? It is just this group. Then there's just 1 carbon there on the middle point. Then it has formed an alcohol, meaning that there's no hydrogen whatsoever. So let's take this to be part of the reagent, then this to be part of the phenyl group in that in that Grignard reagent. So we're going to start with these two groups. Okay, so we have another group there, another phenyl group, because there are actually two which were in the starting material side. Then this other phenyl group came from the one which is formed the one which is at the bottom. So because we need to form a carbonyl, so there has to be a carbonyl, okay, like that. But remember, this carbonyl is not bonded to any hydrogen, so we're just going to put this carbon, rather, it's not bonded to any hydrogen. Then we should just have a carbonyl group, no other hydrogen. So this was actually the starting material. So this is about the Grignard. Grignard reagent. Alright, so don't forget to subscribe, share, and also like. Thank you for watching. This was 2026 tutorial sheet, April, question 29. Chemistry 2105.